Hi guys, QuietPenguin here, back for part 2 of our matches with Aggro Hunter. So let's play another game. And we're 2-0 so far, so we're sitting pretty. We've got a pretty good record so far. As you can see, this deck's pretty strong. And we're also getting our games done relatively quickly. Sorry. And hopefully we can verse some different decks so I can show you guys the different matchups. But we'll see how we go. Okay, we're against Warlock. So this could either be Zoo or Handlock. So Zoo is similar to us, is a very aggressive deck. And then Handlock is more of a control combo-y type deck featuring the Giants. So we've got the best card in our deck here in Undertaker, and we've got a 2-drop with Death Rattle to lead into it. So we're just going to mulligan the Mechanical Yeti here, because these two cards are pretty much perfect. And we draw a low feb, which is not the greatest, but we will take it. So we'll start off with our Undertaker. It's our only option here. So guys, please like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know in the comments if you feel like I've made any mistakes in my plays, or if there's any decks in particular you'd like me to play. I have a pretty good Hearthstone collection, so I can play pretty much any deck, I think. So yeah, if there's any decks in particular you'd like to see me play, let me know. Here, we don't really want to play our hero power yet. We want to develop our board as much as possible in the early game, which means we're either going to play Haunted Creeper or Mad Scientist. We're going to go with Mad Scientist here because it has more power, 2 rather than 1, and there's no sweepers that he can play on 2 mana. So he could potentially, he has the coin, so he can get up to 3 mana on his next turn using the coin. And there's still no sweepers, so we don't really need the stickiness of the Haunted Creeper here, so we'd rather just have more power on the board. And both of these minions trigger our Undertaker, so we'll play out our minion, buff our Undertaker, and attack his face. And when you're playing against Warlock, it's generally turn 2 that you'll be able to work out which deck he plays, because by turn 2, the aggressive version of Warlock, say Zoo, will have wanted to play a minion, whereas Handlock will normally spend their turn 2 life tapping, which he's done. So he's most likely playing Handlock here, which means we just want to get as much damage in as quickly as we can, although we do need to be aware of the Molten Giant, which gets cheaper the more damage he takes. So here we just want to develop our board a little bit better, so we'll play out our Haunted Creeper. We'll buff our Undertaker and we'll attack him for 5. And our hand's actually pretty strong here, particularly against Handlock. We've got Low Feb, which is one of our best cards against them. If we're still controlling the board by turn 5, which it looks like we will be, then Low Feb can be really, really powerful. Okay, and here he has a Hellfire. And this is one of the strengths of the deck. As you can see, he wasn't able to kill the Undertaker. The Haunted Creeper triggered, giving us 2 more dudes, and the Scientist even triggered, giving us a trap, which is the Explosive Trap. So as you can see, we're pretty resilient to sweepers. We can maintain our board presence pretty effectively with this deck. Now the Molten Giant costs 20, I believe, but it costs 1 less for each damage that your hero's taken. So at the moment it would cost 8. So if we attack him for 5 here, it'll only cost 3, meaning he can play it next turn. And if he were to play an 8/8, we're actually not too bad because we have the Freezing Trap. But nevertheless, we want to be very careful of actually how much damage we deal him here. So our most mana efficient play this turn is probably to play out the Yeti. We want to get as much damage on the board as we can because we can follow that up with Low Feb. And now we simply need to work out how much to attack for. So if we attack him for 4, the Giant will go down to 4 mana. And I actually think we're okay just attacking him with everything here. So that does mean that the Giant will only cost 2, meaning he could potentially play 2 of them next turn. But if he does that, we've actually just got him dead. We've got 10 damage on board, so it's not too big of a deal if he just plays out some giants here. As long as he can't give them taunt, which it doesn't look like he can. And there we go. So there's the Molten Giant. And we actually have pretty much lethal here. So we can attack him for 9. Getting him down to just 3. And now we can play the Loatheb. So the Loatheb basically is going to cut off all his spells next turn, because he won't be able to cast anything. And with this amount of board presence and our hero power, and the explosive trap, if he decided to go face for whatever reason, means he's very unlikely to win this game. So we're going to play Loatheb here, cut him off enemy spells, and we should have this game. But nevertheless, we'll see what he does. Okay, so he plays a heal bot. Gains 8 life here, which is not too bad, but as you can see, not enough to win. We had 9 damage on board, plus 2 from the hero power to kill him. And so there's another win, guys. So we're 3-0 right now. And we've had some pretty varied matchups here, so you're getting to see how it plays against the other decks currently popular on ladder, which is really good. And as you can see, it is important to take into consideration the Molten Giants in that matchup, but if we get an aggressive enough start like we did there, we can sort of nullify it and it doesn't matter too much. But it is something to keep in mind when we're playing against the handlock deck. Okay, now we're playing against another mage deck. Now, similar to last time, we do have a 1-drop, but we don't really particularly want to play this on turn 1 against a mage just by itself, because they can just spend their turn 2 hero powering it. So we actually want to mulligan all of these cards, and we're looking for an Undertaker. So we're going to mulligan all 4 and see what we get. Okay, so we don't get any copies of Undertaker here, but we do get 2 copies of Mad Scientist. We get a Leponome, and as we can see, he's playing an aggressive mech deck, like our last mage opponent. So we've got a couple of options here. We can either play out the Leponome, which we don't really want to do because of the 1 toughness. He can just spend his turn killing it for free next turn. Or we can actually coin out either Mad Scientist or Ironbeak Owl. Now, Ironbeak Owl doesn't really do a lot here. We want to save our silencers for something more important. So we're just going to coin out the Mad Scientist. If he has a mech next turn, he can trade off with this, which we don't mind because we'll get a trap out of the deal, and if he doesn't, we get to eat his minion for free. It doesn't look like he has a mech. Oh, and he has to waste a Frostbolt on our Mad Scientist, which is pretty good here. And we get Explosive Trap, which is actually the one that we wanted here because it'll kill his minion. So here we're just going to play out another Mad Scientist. We could play out both of our 1-drops here, but again, with his hero power and him having a 1-2 in play, that doesn't seem very good. And he didn't have a mech last turn or any follow-up to, and in fact he had to waste a Frostbolt on our Mad Scientist, which we're pretty happy with. So hopefully he can't really deal too well with this one either. Of course, he does have 1 more mana now, meaning he could play all kinds of mechs. So he could have Spider Tank, or Spider Tank. Could have also had a card like Harvest Golem. And now we're in a little bit of trouble simply because he has control of the board at the moment there. Now he could kill command and attack, but that means he gets a 2 for 1 even though we get the trap, so that doesn't seem very good. So we might as well just go face here. And now we're kind of in a bit of a sticky situation here simply because he has control of the board. We don't particularly want to play one of these Ironbeak Owls here. We could just play out both of our 1-drops, but it's not particularly mana efficient to do that. And we also might want access to the kill command next turn, which Web Spinner gives us. Next turn we can play Web Spinner and kill command for 5 damage. So here I'm actually going to hero power him and play out the Leponome. He can spend his turn 4 spending 2 mana to just kill this with his hero power, but we're pretty okay with that. If that's the best play that he can make on turn 4, then that's fine. But as you can see, we're not in a fantastic spot here. And yep, he just decides to play out a 4/4, and he might even go face here with the Spider Tank, which is what he does. And so here we can actually play out our Web Spinner, which will turn on our kill command to deal 5 damage to the Spider Tank. And then we can just trade off with his 4/4. So we've managed to clear his board. We'll still have a 1/1 in play, and we'll also get a secret thanks to the Mad Scientist. And we are ahead here by 4 life, which is relevant. And the Freezing Trap's going to be super good to this game. You can kill that for free, but that's okay. And we draw a really good one in Buzzard. Buzzard here, if we can survive, can draw us a ton of cards. So we'll play out our bow. Here now we really want to save these beasts for the Buzzard if we can. So here I'm just going to kill his minion, leaving him with a 2/1 in play. If he attacks us with it and triggers the Freezing Trap, it's not ideal for us, but there's not a lot we can do about that. It will give us an extra durability on our weapon, which is fine, and we get to use our hero power. And every turn that we get to actually use our hero power is really strong in this matchup, simply because the Mech Mage doesn't really have a ton of life gain. You can play the Antique Heal Bot, but it's not super common, I don't think. Yeah. So the lower we get him, the better. It depends what he has to follow up with here. And it's also important to note whether or not he has any spare parts in his hands. So the only spare part he's got so far this game was from his 4/4, the Tinkertown Technician. And if you remember, he actually used it on his Spider Tank to make it 5 health. So we know that the 4 cards in his hand at the moment are actually all real cards. None of them are spare parts. And we now know one of the cards in his hand, which is a 2/1 for 3 mana. And he just plays out the Azure Drake here. We draw another bow. And now we've got a few different options. Drawing the extra bow means that we can probably afford to start going face. And we don't really have a great way to deal with his 4/4 in play. We can, however, play Buzzard and Web Spinner, try and get a little bit of a board. He can deal with it quite easily if he wants to. But we do get an extra card out of the Buzzard from the Web Spinner. And when the Web Spinner dies, we're also going to get a random beast. And if he's spending his turns dealing with our board, he's just going to be getting lower and lower from our weapons and our hero power. So that's what we're going to do. And if for some reason he happens to leave this in play for a turn, then we're going to be really happy. Yep, so he just hero powers to kill our 1/1. We get the Scavenging Hyena right on time. Not a lot we can do about that. And now he's starting to develop a pretty strong board here, so hopefully we draw something good. Okay, Animal Companion's not bad here. We do have our weapon to trade off. We can probably just want to kill the Azure Drake. We could kill the Shredder, but that'll trigger his Death Rattle, and it'll mean that he'll still have 3 minions on the board. We just want him to have as few minions as possible. It's also possible that we just want to play out an Ironbeak Owl here and shut off the Shredder. In fact, that seems like a really strong play. So that's one thing we'll definitely want to do this turn. I think we also want to get out an Animal Companion if possible. And depending on which one we get, we might want a hero power, or we might just want to try and play out another minion. But we'll play out our animal companion first and see what we get. And so we get a Mishra. So we'll play out our Ironbeak Owl. We'll silence his guy, and now we can actually attack it with the bow, because we want to use our damage as effectively as we can, efficiently as we can. And silencing it means that he's still only going to have 2 minions on the board, which is pretty strong for us. Normally I wouldn't want to play out the Clockwork Gnome here because he can just hero power it, but because we've already given him a really good target for it, we're happy playing it out here. It's also possible that we should have just played out the Scavenging Hyena here because this was a beast, and it would have triggered. And if he does that, it would also trigger the Hyena again. So that was quite possibly a misplay there on my part, so sorry about that one, guys. And he's just trading off the board here. He's got 1 spare part in hand. He's also got the 2/1 that we freezing trapped back to his hand. There it is. So he's got 2 real cards and a spare part. And we actually got the best spare part here in the freeze, which is pretty good for us. And yeah, so I definitely should have played the Scavenging Hyena last turn, but too late now, what can you do? So we'll start off by playing our Eaglehorn Bow, and we really just want to get this board under control now a little bit. So we'll kill off his Mech Warper. It's the most efficient use of our bow damage. We don't have any great targets here for the Ironbeak Owl. We can silence the Gnome here, which is not particularly strong. And yeah, we really should have played this last turn. We really just want to try and get a board going here if we can. So I think just playing out all our minions here is probably correct. So that's what I'm going to do. And we'd certainly be in a much better spot if I'd played this last turn. Silencing this is actually relevant in case he has the Mage Legend. We don't want him to have too many spare parts in his hand to turn into fireballs. As you can see, he was able to clear off our board pretty easily, so hopefully he doesn't have too much to follow it up with. And he has a Mechanical Yeti, which is pretty bad for us, although we do have the freeze to stop it for a turn. Hopefully we draw something good, and of course we draw a Loatheb, which is probably the best draw for us there after a Highmane. So we're going to slam that down. We're going to freeze his minion. We'll deal 2 damage to him. We're going to keep our Whirling Blades in our hand in case it becomes relevant. We don't really need to do it now. We have no use for it. And same with the bow. We could attack him for 3 here, but we can easily do that next turn. And I believe we also have 1 freezing trap left, which means it's possible that we could get an extra durability on our weapon here. So we're going to keep that in play. There's no reason to use it yet. And so this game is going to be pretty close. Again, it's going to depend on what we draw off the top. Drawing the Loatheb there was pretty good for us. Okay, and he just fireballs it. It cost him basically his whole turn. And we draw another good one in a Sludge Belcher. So we'll slam that one down. Use our hero power. And now, again, we could potentially attack his Yeti if we want, but I feel like we're going to need that free damage to win the game here. And it's unlikely that he's going to be able to deal with our Sludge Belcher and the Death Rattle next turn. So we're happy not using the bow here. So our last question is whether or not we want to use our Whirling Blades on our Sludge Belcher. I don't think we do, because he could possibly have silence. And also the extra 1 attack here is not relevant. His Mechanical Yeti will survive if he attacks either way, so there's not much point playing it here. Let's see what he has. Hopefully we can draw like high main next turn or something. We're due for a really good draw, I think. I mean, our draws have sucked so far. Low Ferb and Sludge Belcher. Come on, man. Come on, deck. What are you doing? Alright, so he just crashes in here and finishes off our minion with his hero power, which is fine. And the Annoyatron, which is actually pretty... And a Frostbolt. And a second... Okay, so that's pretty good for him. We're in a pretty sticky spot here. We do draw our own Mechanical Yeti, which is pretty good. So we'll slam that down. Slam our hero power. Here we actually want to play out our Whirling Blades, because if we don't, he can use his fresh Mechanical Yeti to crash into ours and then hero power to finish it off. And if he's going to be making a play like that, we'd rather at least trade off Yetis, so we're going to play the Whirling Blades here. And once again, I'm not going to attack him here with the bow. I don't feel like it's particularly relevant. Oh man, that is not good for us. That is really, really bad for us. Okay, so we're probably dead next turn. So the main misplay I made this game was not playing out that Scavenging Hyena. It's likely he had the Fireball and the Frostbolt to deal with it. But nevertheless, still quite likely a mistake. We draw really well here, but unfortunately we can't get through the Annoyatron in time to kill him. So as you can see, we can put him to 9 here. We can kill off the Annoyatron, but he just has lethal in play. And so we lose one, guys. So we're 3-1 now. We lost a pretty tight game there. He just drew a bit better than us in the late game. He does have the Azure Drakes to pull ahead, which is a pretty cool card. It's possible that it should be in this deck. But I'm not too sure where you'd find room for it, sadly. But yeah, we're 3-1 now. And let's play another game. So another thing, guys, please comment and let me know how many games you'd like to see me play with each deck. I'm aiming to play maybe, say, between 5 and 8, depending on how long the games take. So a deck like Aggro Hunter, as you can see, the games are pretty quick. So I'm happy to play a few more games of that. So I'll probably try and play about 8 games today, roughly. But yeah, let me know how many games you'd like to see. Okay, and another mage opponent. We'll just see if... Oh, so he's a different one than last time. Different opponent. And again, we're just going to try and mulligan for an Undertaker or some minions. We don't really want any of these cards in our opening hand. And we get some really crappy minions in our opening hand. So it's possible the deck should only be playing 1 copy of these. Simply because they are so bad in the early game. So in fact, if you wanted to cut one of these, you could possibly cut it for an Azure Drake. That would have been quite good in the last match. Okay, so here we get either hero power or play out an owl. We might as well play out an owl and silence this Annoyatron. Certainly not a good play, and he gets to spend his turn 2 killing off our minion, but we don't really have much else. And we would rather he use the hero power and kill off our dude than develop his board more. So say he plays a Mech Warper here, we'd be in a little bit of trouble. Although we do have the bow, thankfully, to deal with that. Yep, and so that's what he does. We can just regain the board here by playing the bow, so that's what we're going to do. We could play out the Animal Companion here. If we got Huffer, if we got Mishra, sorry, or the 2-4, that'd be pretty good. But if we did get the Huffer here, we'd actually be in a fair bit of trouble. So the more reliable players here is just to play out the bow. It also gives us the ability to use the bow next turn if he makes a play here, and then we can slam the Yeti as well. So hopefully we'll be able to regain the board here. if he plays a minion that's weak to the bow, which of course he does not. So Freezing Trap wasn't too bad a draw here, but we're just going to slam out our Yeti. It's the most mana efficient play we can make this turn, and hopefully he doesn't have any way to deal with it. We don't want to attack face with our bow. We're probably going to need to use it to trade off the board this game. So we're going to keep that. And hopefully we'll get to use this Freezing Trap a bit better this game. If you remember last game, it bounced the token from a Harvest Golem, which is certainly not ideal. So hopefully we get a better target. And of course he has the Goblin Blast Mage here, which is pretty strong. And trade off. Yep. Okay, so as you can see again, he's got pretty firm control of the board here. So what we could do is we can play Web Spinner and the Kill command to kill off his minion. We don't want to really play Freezing Trap here simply because we don't want him to get a second use out of his Blast Mage. So that's the best play that we can make here. If we had 6 mana, we'd be far better off because we could play out the Animal Companion first to trigger the Beast part of Kill command. And we don't really want to play the Owl here because there's not much point in silencing the Blast Mage. So we'll play out our Web Spinner and kill off his dude. And one thing you can see here that's really good about the Mech Mage deck is that a lot of its minions are quite difficult to kill. They all have 4 toughness or more, which is quite a pain for this deck. And quite a few of them are sticky, like the Harvest Golem. Thankfully though, he didn't get an early Mech Warper draw. That's some of their best draws, like our Undertaker draws are. They can just get ahead of the board that way really quickly when all their mechs cost 1 less. He just decides to slam a Loatheb, which isn't too bad for us here. Actually, no, it's quite bad for us. I just assumed we just slam out the Freezing Trap, which we can't do. So here, we don't have a lot of good options, sadly. He's turned off most of our hand. There's not much point playing an Owl, so we might as well just play out our Loot Hoarder. We'll shoot him with the bow, with our weapon, our Hero Power. Attack face with that and leave our bow in play. It was quite a good turn for him. Yep, so he kills off our Loot Hoarder. Hopefully we draw something good like a High Main. Explosive Traps, not particularly good here. Okay, and he summons out a Piloted Shredder. So we do have the Owl for that, which is handy. So we can just simply go Owl, silence that. We can kill it off with our bow now. And now we've got 5 mana left. So here I'd actually like to play the Freezing Trap because I don't particularly mind if the Loatheb gets bounced, and then we can play out the Animal Companion, and that should allow us to regain the board. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this. Hopefully we get a good minion. Yep, and that's fine. Here we can just attack for 2. What's this one called? Leoch. If you guys know how to say this, please tell me. That's a pretty hard pronunciation for me. Leoch? Leoch? Luke? I don't know, it's a tricky one. Alright, Mage, do your worst. What have you got? Bounce you. No good. So as you can see here, he does have 7 mana, so he can just replay the 5/5 if he wants, but it'll take his whole turn, and then we get the initiative. So right now we've got firm control of the board. So he has a random one of Flame Strike, which is pretty strong here. We weren't really playing around it too much, although we do get a minion off of our Web Spinner, which is nice. So here we kind of just want to be as mana efficient as possible, but we also really want to gain control of the board here. So we need to play out our Yeti, simply because it's the best way to control the board. We'll Hero Power and play out our Explosive Trap. We don't particularly want to play out our Leponome because it's so easy for him to shoot it. And this reversing switch could end up being really good here to swap our Yeti to 5 power if we need it for some reason. Alright, Mage, what do you got? Do your worst. Dr. Boom. Okay, Dr. Boom is pretty annoying here. Okay, thankfully we do have a taunt, but he can just rip through it with the Dr. Boom, which is not ideal for us. We can play the Undertaker into the Leper Gnome, plus this and Hero Power, which seems pretty good. So we're going to start our play off by doing that. And now we need to work out where we want to attack. So he has pretty firm control of the board here. He can just kill this off and then do some trades. The boom bots are probably going to be pretty good here. So we're going to go face. It's possible, depending on how he goes here, that we might be able to rush and kill him. But he has so many cards in hand here that, and he seems to be playing a lot more late game cards than we are. So yeah, now that the game's dragged on this long, we're probably unlikely to win. But hey, you never know, right? You never know. Depends where these boom bots go. Okay, so that was super good for us. Okay. Alright, boom bot in. Face for 1 damage. Hey! Alright. Okay, so that went as well as it could for us, which is fantastic. And this explosive trap means that we can probably just go face again. If he plays around it by attacking Dr. Boom into Nevermind, next turn, then it would have been in range for the explosive trap. As is, we're in quite a bit of trouble here. Okay, so we'll Hero Power, play out our Haunted Creeper. And we're so unlikely to win here that we might as well just get in as much damage as we can. Putting 1 damage on any of these minions isn't super relevant. We might as well try and kill him, as unlikely as that is. From 16 as well, worth noting as well that he has 11, 12 damage on the board. So if he had a fireball there, we'd just be dead. Okay, the double Mech Warper. It's pretty strong. Yep, and we don't actually, I don't think we have any draws in our deck here that can save us. Yep, and he has low fab just to be triple sure. Yep, and that won't do it. So we can get him down. We can swap our minion here. So we can get him to 6, which is pretty good, but no cigar. So well done, Mech Mage. You have bested us again. Okay, guys, that puts us at 3-2 so far. I'm going to play, say, 3 more games with this deck, I think. The game's going pretty quick, so I don't mind playing a few more. So please like, comment, and subscribe. And join me for part 3. Thanks, guys.